Welcome back to the basement. I'm Steve Lewis. This week and next, we'll be looking at the Beach Boys' second album of 1965, Summer Days and Summer Nights, with "and Summer Nights" in parentheses, followed by 2 exclamation points, double the number you got on their previous album, Beach Boys Today. If you'd picked this up on the day of release, Monday, July 5th, I'm sure you would have immediately been struck by the cover. It's a nice big color photo of the group and utilizes the space better than any previous Beach Boys album, with the arguable exception of Surfin' Safari. It's a beautifully composed photo, but it's bound to look a little off-kilter to Beach Boys fans because, of course, it only shows 4 Beach Boys. Once again, Al missed an album cover photo shoot. As mentioned in episode 211, All Summer Long Part 1, Al was absent from the beach photo session with the models that made up the bulk of the All Summer Long album cover because he had been sick that day. His photos with his wife Linda were taken separately at Griffith Park. As is now well known, Bruce Johnston was aboard for the Summer Days photo session and appears prominently in some of the outtakes. Reportedly, of course, he couldn't appear on the cover since he was still under contract to Columbia. It's probably just as well. If Bruce had appeared with Al absent, I'm sure many fans would have assumed that Bruce had replaced Al, the same way a lot of fans found out that Al had replaced David Marks when they first saw him on the cover of Shutdown Volume 2. Al does appear on the back cover, of course, and explains that he missed the boat because he was down with the flu. The back cover continues Capitol's campaign to present the guys as individual personalities like the Beatles, with each one appearing in a separate photo next to an autographed personal note. Additionally, for the first time, the back cover track listing shows who the lead singer is on each song. Once you got the album home and opened it up, you'd have seen that apart from one cover song, all songs were credited to Brian Wilson, with "And Your Dream Comes True" credited to Brian Wilson and Mike Love. After the 1994 lawsuit, Mike Love's name will be added to The Girl from New York City, Amusement Parks USA, Salt Lake City, Help Me Rhonda, California Girls, Let Him Run Wild, and You're So Good to Me. In the broadest sense, fans might have seen the album as a slightly better value than Beach Boys Today, since the album contained only one previously released track, the single Help Me Rhonda, where Today had included 3, making up 25% of the album, 5 if you counted the advanced single. With Brian no longer touring and under pressure from Capitol for more product, sessions for the album had started almost as soon as Today was complete. There's only 4 months between the release of Summer Days and Today. There had been 8 months between Today and their last prior regular studio album, All Summer Long, with the Christmas album and Beach Boys concert in between. Many reviewers talk about the album feeling rushed, and no doubt it was, but it's not filled out with the kind of quickie instrumentals and cover tunes the way some of their earlier releases had been. It's also absent the spoken word filler tracks that had featured on their last 3 regular studio albums. In his 2016 memoir, Brian says that, after Beach Boys Today, Capitol put pressure on us to bring them big sales. If that's what they wanted, that's what I wanted to give them. The next record, Summer Days and Summer Nights, was probably our best rock and roll record. It's also, in part, a return to the teen-friendly themes of their earlier work. It's evident from the track listing. Amusement Parks USA and I'm Bugged at My Old Man are obviously written from a teenager's point of view. It's evident lyrically, too, in songs like Girl Don't Tell Me, with its references to staying with my gran and going back to school. The travelogue, Salt Lake City, is all about the groovy kids and what they dig, with no mention of Beehive House, the Masonic Temple, or the Utah Museum of Fine Arts. Lyrical considerations aside, the music obviously continues to get more sophisticated, with even more adventurous and interesting arrangements, great production, and some of the Beach Boys' all-time best and most enduring work. Reportedly, at the suggestion of Bruce Johnston, a veteran producer at Columbia, some of the group's sessions were done at Columbia Studios, where Brian could take advantage of their new state-of-the-art 8-track machine, mainly by bumping down 3 or 4-track recordings to 1, leaving 7 tracks open for vocal overdubs. The album opens with The Girl from New York City. It's an answer song to East Coast group The Ad-Libs' Boy from New York City, which had gone to number 8 on February 27, 1965. It opens with a honking saxophone from Steve Douglas and thuds along in an almost relentlessly up-tempo way. It seems bent on announcing, "We're here to have fun, kids," which is probably why it was chosen as the album opener. It's got some nice vocals with a wild high falsetto from Bruce Johnston. And though, while I'm not musicologist enough to quantify it, it's always seemed a bit un-Beach Boys-like to me. Like they're turning in a great performance and having fun, aping a more East Coast sound. I'm not sure if that's just because this is an answer song or that's just me personally. I don't know if anybody else gets that same impression. It was recorded at a massive session on May 24, 1965 that also produced You're So Good to Me and Your Dream Comes True and I'm Bugged at My Old Man. Personally, I find it a bit manic and, as I say, un-Beach Boys-like, which makes it one of my least favorite songs on the album, but this is quite an album, so that's all relative. It's a solid track and an understandable choice as an album opener. After the more general lyrics of Beach Boys Today, the Beach Boys clearly return to more teenage subject matter with Amusement Parks USA. In fact, with its carnival barker, it harkens all the way back to County Fair on Surf and Safari. The spoken interlude with Hal Blaine as the carnival barker is also based on a similar rap that begins the Coasters' Little Egypt, Yin Yang, released on April 14, 1961. The song's title invokes Surfin' USA. Everybody might not have had an ocean across the USA, but there were plenty of amusement parks across the country. The song name-checks some of them just as Surfin' USA had done with surfing spots. Mentioned in the lyrics is Palisades Park in Cliffside Park, New Jersey. Of course, it's the same Palisades Park that Freddie Cannon sang about in his 1962 number 3 hit. And you can hear a very similar riff to Palisades Park at the tail end of Amusement Parks USA. The Beach Boys will release their own version of Palisades Park 11 years later on 15 Big Ones. The song also mentions Salisbury Park in Salisbury, Massachusetts, Euclid Beach Park in Cleveland, Ohio, and its famed Flying Turns roller coaster, Riverview Park in Chicago, Illinois, and its parachutes, Disneyland and Pacific Ocean Park, POP, in Southern California, and Steel Pier in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Apart from Steel Pier and Disneyland, of course, most of these places will be gone within a few years, owing mainly to real estate development. Musically, it paints a picture of wild amusement park action, much the same way that the single version of Be True to Your School had done for a high school football game. With its stop-start structure, wild interjections, and hurdy-gurdy feel, it also previews some of what's to come with Heroes and Villains 2 years later. In November 1965, the song was released as a single A-side in Japan, with the Rockin' Surfer from the Surfer Girl album on the B-side. According to the liner notes in the Today's Summer Days 2 for CD, it got to number 3. Next up is the one cover song on Summer Days, Then I Kissed Her, with lyrics rewritten to present them from a male perspective. It was originally recorded by the Crystals as Then He Kissed Me and released as a single A-side on July 12, 1963 on Phil Spector and Lester Sill's Phyllis label. It spent 3 weeks at number 6 beginning September 14, 1963. For the first 2 of those weeks, it was just above the Beach Boys single Surfer Girl at its number 7 peak. It's the first time Brian has covered a tune originally produced by the much-admired Phil Spector. The Beach Boys' musical arrangement is simpler than the original and reportedly played entirely by the group themselves, apart from some tambourine by Ron Swallow. In his note on the back cover, Brian describes Ron Swallow as our traveling buddy and wardrobe man. Here's a picture of Ron roadieing with the group in 1965. He also plays tambourine on Girl Don't Tell Me and You're So Good to Me. The track has a nice, clear, yet full sound, and the vocal arrangements are what really makes it work. Al follows up his lead vocal on Help Me Rhonda with a great lead vocal on this, and the group oohs and ahs are soaring. It's an excellent choice to cover and a fine addition to a 1965 album. Much to the group's consternation, it will be released as a single in the UK on April 28, 1967, about 6 months after Good Vibrations and about 3 months ahead of Heroes and Villains. The Beach Boys are understandably outraged since it no longer represents their sound. It's also out of step with current trends at a time when UK hit singles include the Beatles' Strawberry Fields Forever, The Moves' I Can Hear the Grass Grow, Cat Stevens' I'm Gonna Get Me a Gun, and the Jimi Hendrix Experience's Purple Haze. Nevertheless, and maybe even more distressing for the Beach Boys, the single will go to UK number 4. Of course, all that was a long way off. Getting back to the summer of '65 and the Summer Days and Summer Nights album, next up is the Beach Boys' musical tribute to Salt Lake City. Through this channel, I've been fortunate enough to contact some longtime Beach Boys fans from the Salt Lake City area, like Larry Jacobs and Lamont South. If they're typical of Salt Lake City Beach Boys fans, it's no wonder the Beach Boys loved the place. The Beach Boys first played there at the famous Lagoon Amusement Park in Farmington on February 7, 1963, at a show attended by 4,500 fans. During that stop, the group also visited radio station KNAK, known locally as KNAK. The station had been great boosters for the group, particularly DJ Bill Big Daddy Hesterman, shown here with the group in a 1968 photo. Reportedly, while at the station, the group heard the story that Shirley Jackson, daughter of KNAK's owner, had been grounded for borrowing her father's T-Bird to go to the library and going to hang out at a local drive-in restaurant instead. The rest, as they say, is history. Lamont South pointed out that in the original mono version, after the line, "The number one radio station makes the town really swing, yeah," you can hear someone shout, "KNAK." I had never noticed it, but I sure do hear it. Lamont tells me it was mixed out of later stereo copies. He also tells me that, not surprisingly, the shout-out was mentioned by the KNAK DJs on a pretty regular basis. Salt Lake City was the first place outside of California where the group really caught on. After their wildly successful initial appearance, the group were booked to return in December, and they frequently played multi-night engagements in the area for years after. A tribute in song seems entirely fitting. It's a good song, too. I'll admit that when I first heard it during high school, I had no idea why they were singing about Salt Lake City, but it didn't matter. It rocks along infectiously from the bass intro to the final "We'll Be Comin' Soon" with an unusual bright arrangement and all those great vocals. As we discussed last time, Capitol will press 1,000 copies of a Salt Lake City single to be given away by city merchants when the Beach Boys visit in September '65. In a way, it's also kind of a road song of the kind that will be so prevalent from rock acts in the '70s. They're a traveling band moving on from town to town, though this one is a little more joyous than most of what we'll get in the '70s. Girl Don't Tell Me is a song that owes much of its sound, from the guitar to the drum fills to the ride, to the Beatles' Ticket to Ride, which had been released as a single in the US on April 19th. According to the Keith Badman book, recording for Girl Don't Tell Me began on April 30th, 6 days after the Beatles single first entered the charts at 89. As discussed, it'll hit number 1 on May 22nd, a week before the Beach Boys' Help Me Rhonda hits number 1 for 2 weeks. Another part of its Beatle-esque sound comes from its lack of backing vocals, certainly unusual for a Beach Boys record. Carl takes the lead vocal and, of course, turns in a great performance. It makes you realize just how very, very sparingly Carl had been used as a lead vocalist up to this time. On the back cover, Brian even mentions that he's glad he finally wrote a song that Carl dug singing. That voice is a resource that the group will thankfully begin spotlighting more and more from here on out. It's another track played almost entirely by the group, and the celeste from Bruce Johnston helps make the record shimmer. Carl's 12-string gives it the kind of bright, jangly feel we're also hearing around this time in records like the Byrds' Mr. Tambourine Man, another one influenced by Ticket to Ride. The Beatles' influence is undeniable, but Girl Don't Tell Me has its own distinct feel and easily stands apart and on its own. It's a song I never get tired of and one of my personal favorites in their entire catalog. Closing out side one is Help Me Rhonda, the Beach Boys' #1 hit single from the spring. We already discussed it in detail in episode 260, today part 2, Help Me Rhonda. Again, it's nice to have it on an LP instead of just a 45, and the back cover notes that it's the single record version, so fans would know at least they're not buying the same track that had already appeared on Beach Boys Today. That's where we'll leave it for this week. I hope you'll join me next time when we wrap things up with side 2. Meanwhile, I look forward to your comments and feedback. Please hit like if you don't mind, subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. Bye.